Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together Curriculum Reviews, and today we are going to be covering the Math Mammoth Grade 1 full curriculum. This is a curriculum that's available both in workbook form as well as digital downloads. You can obtain this curriculum for anywhere between $40 to $60, and there are also bundles. So if you're looking for multiple years of math curriculum, there's also some discounts as well. You can obtain these curriculum books as well as the digital downloads through the Math Mammoth website, as well as other resellers that are widely available. We have seen this math curriculum, you may have heard it referenced in like public schools, private schools, and in homeschools. This is a widely available, widely popular math curriculum. Focuses on conceptual learning, focusing on that kind of that visual aspect of math, and a mastery approach where you're going to be spending extended time periods on certain types of concepts through a chapter by chapter workbook that you'll be doing multiple problems, you'll be talking about different concepts, you'll be doing lots of example problems as well as word problems. I love this workbook for those families that are looking to have a lower touch with their learner. You may have multiple children, you may not have enough time to do lots of one-on-one intensive education. The workbook style and the approach and the curriculum as it is laid out is a wonderful addition to any type of homeschool that needs to have sort of a lower touch if you have not as much time with your homeschool. One thing is you may need to supplement with some manipulatives. This obviously is a workbook. They recommend getting an abacus as well as some other manipulatives, especially with these early years. You maybe need to do a little bit more of like some tile work, or maybe get a geoboard or some tanagrams, or even just some scratch paper. Is definitely something you may have to consider going with this, but for $40 to $60 for an entire grade 1 curriculum, it's pretty good. So let's go ahead and hop directly into the curriculum and see what it's all about. So the Math Mammoth curriculum for grade 1, and you will see this common theme through all their curriculums, they have multiple workbooks. And so I'm going to go ahead and lay these out for you so that you can see. The bulk of the work that your child will be doing is in these A and B books. Hard to tell them the difference, but this is the light blue edition. You have the A and the B, and these are basically your workbooks that your children will be, doing all their work in. And on the front covers, it actually tells you what they're going to be covering. So addition and subtraction, some calendar, time, money. You also get another workbook as well that covers basically the tests and the cumulative reviews. Is this necessary? I would say yes, because there are review chapters here in the actual work text, but it's also nice to do some type of assessment, especially if you have to do some type of reporting for your state, or you have to have some type of contact with an educator or somebody from your school district. Having these tests available is a wonderful resource. The final book is probably the most optional of them, but maybe more needed as you get into the higher grades. Maybe not in the lower grades, but maybe more useful in the higher grades, which is the answer key. Now, in this book, we're doing simple addition and subtraction, and for the most part, we as educators can probably handle that, and we can, essentially do the math really quick. But when you start to get up to these higher levels, in like level 3, level 4, you're doing more complex multiplication, larger place value addition and subtraction. It may not be something you want to do very quickly, so the answer keys may be more helpful. Especially when you get into more like complex word problems, maybe you are a little confused at what they're asking for, the answer keys may be helpful as well. But let's go ahead, we're going to go through all these books so you guys can get an idea of what those are. So let's go ahead and start with the first book, the grade 1 A series work text. So obviously it tells you on the outside what you're going to be covering. So addition, concepts, and facts within 1 to 10, as well as subtraction, some connection between those two, graphing, and 2-digit numbers, and place value up to 100. Whenever you get into your any type of book, you'll notice this at the beginning of the book, as well as the beginning of every chapter. Math Mammoth has done a great job at kind of outlaying and presenting the information that you're going to be educating in this chapter. And this kind of does follow a mastery-based method of learning, which means you're going to be spending extended time on a given topic. So in this case, addition within 1 to 10. On some other type of methods, You may loop, you may cycle, you may hop between concepts and come back. This is a mastery-oriented approach, so do know that when you get into the curriculum. If your learner is not good with spending a long period of time doing something like this, then maybe you may have to pivot a little bit, come back, maybe hop around yourself. It's something you're going to have to consider, maybe consider a different curriculum. Now, the thing with Math Mammoth is there's no kindergarten math curriculum. They start basically at grade 1, and I'll go ahead and include a link to our interview with Maria Miller, the creator of Math Mammoth, in the show notes below, so you can get a little bit more in depth into the nature of the curriculum, what kind of inspired her, and a lot of the thinking around that. But she does give you a little bit of a kindergarten math review, so you can kind of set that framework of what you're expected, which is going to be, basically numbers, writing your numbers, identifying your numbers, counting, simple patterns and whatnot. But moving on to chapter 1, we talk about addition. As we turn over the page here as well, chapter 2 will have subtraction, and obviously then the next will be place value within 1 to 100. Now, the second workbook continues that on. So the minute you finish the third chapter, which is 145 pages, you'll then go ahead and open up book 2, book B here, and then you'll continue on with chapter 4. Chapter 5 covers time. We have some shapes and measuring, and then we finish with some adding and subtracting within the 100s, and then finally a little bit of money, which kind of brings in the concepts that we had earlier with all the previous chapters, but also having the added benefit of teaching a little bit of money, whether it's adding and subtracting, identifying certain coins. Very helpful here, how she kind of folds the two concepts together, where you've learned these tools in your tool belt. So now let's go ahead and apply this to something that our learners will commonly interact with, which is potentially money. We have a nice forward here as well at the front of both books, you can see here. So really helping you kind of like set the groundwork, kind of understanding what you're going to do. You'll notice in the book that there will be a lot of blue links. Now, obviously these are not clickable, which they kind of were. That'd be kind of cool. But this is something if you need additional information, you can go ahead and find that. You can find that through she has nice short links here that can help you. Obviously, here's the kindergarten math review. My learner at this time had already done a kindergarten math curriculum, and we were moving straight into the first grade math, so we went ahead and skipped this. But going into that first chapter, nice layout for you as the educator to help you understand, what you're going to be covering and the concepts, giving you the right state of mind when you're going to be approaching the problems that you're going to be having here. Then moving next, obviously breaks down the pages as we saw the table of contents, some additional concepts for you as the educator, including some games and that you may utilize to help expand on certain concepts that you will be covering, and then additional links here as well outside of the Math Mammoth kind of ecosystem of information. These are on third-party websites that you can go ahead and find. Sometimes the links are very long, but they're actually fairly easy to kind of Google search for. So if you're trying to find the link to this, it's not that difficult to find that. Obviously, you don't want to type this all the way in. If you have the digital downloaded versions, it's a little bit easier. So you got kind of like this additional activities. If you're finding that your learner is struggling on a certain concept, you can go ahead and maybe try some games, some online games that may help supplement that learning. Now, with Math Mammoth, as you can see here, we're starting off very simple, simple, addition, circling 2 blocks. One thing that I like about Math Mammoth that we've used in the past is I love how much opportunity there is for my learner to stretch their reading legs as well while we're doing math. And if you're thinking about the fact that you may have to do some state testing, some type of reporting, something of that nature, where you have to bring your learner in for some type of evaluation or testing, I love the fact that there are opportunities, maybe not at this level to read maybe the descriptions, but definitely to kind of get their experience of reading, okay, what is the problem asking me to do? What do I have to read? And so these are very simple things to read, and they can kind of get their sea legs figuring that out. Because when you're on that standardized test, they're not going to have you there to help read what the descriptions are. Especially when you get into that second, third grade, fourth grade level, where you may have to start taking standardized tests, which is something that we will have to do. I do like having Math Mammoth give my learner that opportunity to say, okay, well, what am I doing? Well, you need to read the description. The description will tell you what you need to do, and part of the problem will as well. Now, moving on, obviously, a lot of structure, a lot of descriptions. Here, obviously, we are combining things, doing simple addition. I like using these workbooks as something for my daughter to do when I need to work with my other child, or if for us we use it as a review. So we have a separate math curriculum that we use in conjunction with Math Mammoth, and I use this as sort of that mastery at the end to drive home. With respect to the amount of pages you're going to be doing every day, I found that my learner did really well with about anywhere between 2 to 3 pages at a clip. And that has held, and we've used this curriculum for multiple years, that has held true all the way up to the higher levels. That 2 to 3 pages seems to be a nice pacing. And if you think about it, it's 145 pages, roughly 150 pages, about, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 of them are the beginning of each chapter, some other pages that are obviously not problems. So you're looking at like 120 pages, and if you're doing 3 a day, that's 40 days to do the one workbook, 40 days to do the next. So you could think about it as like a 90 days, maybe 100 days for you to do a whole curriculum, so about a third of the year. If you're thinking about stretching it a little bit further, you want to go a little bit slower, you can do about 2 pages a day, and maybe it will cover most of the year. I always like to do these every single day. That's kind of my cadence that I can. So some days we can't do homeschool, but I tend to get about 3 to 4 days a week of doing a Math Mammoth level where it's 1 or 2 pages, 2 or 3 pages a day. And I find we can get through the entire curriculum in about 3 to 4 months. Especially with the way we use it as a review. So this is all concepts that my daughter has already been exposed to. And so she's doing this as kind of like a fun, quick math mastery element. And that's how we have used it, and we have enjoyed doing it in that manner. But if this is your child's first time seeing these concepts, you may have to go a little bit slower. So just continuing on, just taking a look at, what we have here. Just simple addition, obviously using the blocks, camels. I like how there's kind of it's not just dots or just sticks. Math Mammoth goes ahead and brings in a little bit of fun, a little bit of creativity, but you can see there's a lot of repetition. And this is something that I like to see with math that I think lacks in some other reading math curriculums, is that just that practice. It's a muscle that has to be trained, and doing problems over and over and over again is a great way to be confident in that. Just continuing on, we have obviously a little bit of practice here for addition. Obviously, just continuing on, here we're using dots, here we're using images. They're asking you to draw the rest of them. Obviously, you can get a little bit of drawing here. I love how you get a lot of practice here writing numbers, really getting that used to that. Obviously, here now we have inequalities. We're starting to understand what is bigger, what is less. Now, jumping ahead a little bit in the same chapter, we now have the idea that we're doing some word problems. If you have a more advanced reader, especially in the first grade level, this is something that you can have them challenge them. I would not skip the word problems unless you have a time issue or something that day. For the most part, I tend to do about 70 to 80% of the word problems that are in the book, and they're not just 1 or 2. Obviously here we have 8 of them. That's really helpful to have, and sometimes the problems will have 2 parts. 2 of them, so you're getting a little bit extra work. I like word problems because they're more realistic. It helps bring the math into the real world, especially like here, mom has 2 eggs at home. The cake recipe calls for 5. How many more eggs will she need? And so these are just great ways to bring math into the real world. Jenny and Penny have goldfish. Obviously, goldfish is a huge problem. We need to make sure they all have the same amount, that type of thing. So definitely has that practice. I enjoy that. I think that's an important aspect of Math Mammoth, that we do get exposure to these word problems, because I think it helps to close that gap between kind of like learning these concepts and then applying them into the real world. So going on further, at the end of the chapter, at the end of every single chapter, there's a nice review. So in this case, it was a review of addition facts. So basically 7, and how do I add 7 up in various ways? 0 and 7, 1 and 6, 2 and 5, 3 and 4. Obviously that 3 is backwards, but we hadn't corrected that on the next one. Little things like that is really good. I tended to use these reviews as tests. You can do that as well. As you can obviously, we end at chapter 2, start chapter 2 there. If you do not get the cumulative tests book, you can use these final reviews. A lot of times in the curriculum there may be a review and then there will be a test. And then there's also some additional cumulative reviews and cumulative tests along the way. And I believe we use the first few of them here. And what you can do here is you can actually tear these pages out. And then they're consumable. I ended up using most of them. I also use the reviews here. When you get into these reviews, you can treat them different ways. Obviously this is 4 pages. I would probably not at first grade give my child 4 pages to do as a test. So I would probably, if I remember back when we did this, when we sat down, I said, okay, Daddy cannot help you. I will read the descriptions of what you need to do for you. So let me know when you get to that part. But once you do the actual problem, I cannot help you. Oh, okay, Daddy, no problem. She goes ahead and does that. I would do probably 2 pages and I would just carefully grade them. At first grade, I don't want to do a lot of grading. Don't want her to feel that pressure. She does want to know if she gets it right. So we will go ahead and fix answers that may be wrong. And I think we had a couple here. But trying not to put a lot of pressure on that evaluation, but giving them the experience of evaluating. So they're not necessarily knowing that they're getting evaluated, but doing it anyway. So kind of that passive evaluation. And then the next day, our next day of math, we would go ahead and finish the review. So something that I like to do is just to use these tests at the end as that evaluation. I think as I got older, she wanted to know more and more what her grade was. So I went ahead and started actually grading them. I would, as just my way of doing things, a correct answer is worth a correct point. And then if you get an answer wrong, but then you come back and I mark it wrong and you do it again, if you get it right, I give you half credit. That's always been something that I've done with my daughter. And then so she can earn back the points that she got wrong if she goes ahead and corrects those. So it's something that I've always done to kind of keep that pressure off them to getting all the right answers. Another thing you'll see very often is this puzzle corner. These can be very tricky. So you'll have to gauge whether your learner likes these. They'll be sprinkled throughout the actual curriculum pages. Let's see if I can find another one. I think I see more of them at there it is, another puzzle corner. These can be a little bit tricky, so not easy to do, but a nice little brain teaser. I find that if there's a puzzle corner at the end of say 3 days, if I have 3 pages that we do, sometimes I'll skip the puzzle corner because it's just like, oh man, that's gonna really, her brain's already tired. Or I'll start with the puzzle corner on the next day. Just a little pro tip, you'll get these puzzle corners in there as well that are kind of cool. So that's a good example here. I'd like to go ahead and open up the next book, and because we'll get a little bit of time here on the calendar, I want you to see a little bit of experience. And here's obviously graphing. You can see it's very visual. A lot of writing on the page. That's so all your work is done here in the book. Very rarely do you need to leave this, but obviously just a wealth of information. It can be a little daunting at first when you are first starting. The curriculum is that, man, that's a lot of pages we're going to end up doing. It goes by pretty fast, and it's not something that feels like once you get into it, that it's never going to end. So here we go. We got a little bit into money, and I want to show you a little bit about money. So if your learner is learning about money, there's every single chapter has this information that you can go and get. And you can get some manipulatives as well if you want to buy some like plastic coins online or actually use real money. That could be very helpful. We have the color edition. You may get the black and white edition, or you may print it from a digital in black and white, so you'll lose kind of the coloring between like a penny and a dime. Obviously this is US centric. This was really, really helpful. My daughter had struggled a lot with money. We had covered it, I think, but the level that we're at now, I think we had done math and time like about 8 or 9 times before she finally started to get it. So these sections we did less of them because it was a lot more stressful for her. But there is a nice covering of money. Obviously, sometimes we skip some sections based on what we're doing for that day. It doesn't really matter. And don't feel bad if you do skip a section or two. I mean, you don't have to do every single page or every single little section. Especially if your learner struggles with something, you can say, okay, I'm going to finish the, the curriculum, and then we're going to do a little bit more on money or a little bit more on time, and I'm going to do that in a separate thing. I think sometimes there was whole chapters that, oh, okay, I don't want to do time right now. I'm going to do a time unit study at the end of the math curriculum because it's just something we need to really ram home, and I need to do it in a focused way. So you skip that chapter and you move on. Don't let anything slow you down when your learner is having good progress. If you're going to do money or time, do it on another time, another part of the year, if that's something that works best for you. But obviously here we cover time and money as well. So the curriculum's really, really good. So obviously that's the work text. Curriculum reviews, I think there's a couple tests in here. Yep, here's a test that we didn't do. So grade 1, chapters 1 through 3. This is one of the cumulative tests. So that you can do kind of at the end of the year, chapters 1 to 2, cumulative test grade 1, and then it would end here, cumulative is grade 1, chapters 1 through 3. So you can add these chapters, another one, 1, 2, 4. We didn't use the cumulative ones as much as the actual individual tests, because I just didn't feel at this level she needed to be like hammered with testing, and I didn't want to have that pressure with her, but we did use the tests, but not necessarily the cumulative reviews. And then obviously here, the purple book is the answer key. So obviously it's the answers to work part 1 and A and B, as well as the test and the cumulative reviews. It's a real nice way to kind of grade this. If you want to give this to an older student that you may have, to grade the younger student, that's another way you could use this as well. But a nice series of solutions to all the problems, as well as the tests and the solutions to the tests as well. I found this it can be helpful, but this is an optional book. If you don't need it, don't have to get it, but definitely I feel like these 3 here, with obviously the 2 workbooks, are a must. The test and the cumulative reviews is kind of like a hit and miss, especially in the earlier years, but I think it becomes more important as you get older, especially with the idea of testing. And then the answer sheets, a lot of it with the digital download that Math Mammoth provides, or some of the bundled options that they have, you get the answer keys as just an add-on. So if you're buying the books individually, these are the 3 I think you must get. This is the 4th that maybe just a little bit optional if you're having to, watch a little bit of the spending, or you're a little bit more cost conscious. You can go ahead and forgo the answer keys as well. Well, thank you so much for following through to the end here, talking about the Math Mammoth curriculum. I think this is a great curriculum for any family that's on the go, where you are maybe road schooling or you're going on travel. This is kind of how we use it. When we go on travel, we'll bring a math curriculum, and we tend to like using Math Mammoth to do that. Instead of bringing our large math curriculum, it's got a bunch of manipulatives and everything. This is a nice on the go. If you find yourself with a lot of kids, you got to pack in, pack out. These books are super slim. Most of the time, all you need is just the one book. Whatever the book is that you're working on, you can toss that in a backpack, toss that into a rolling cart if you have to go to your co-op, if you're going on a little bit of a travel. Great to bring with you to do learning. I like it for that reason. I like the mastery-based approach of teaching math because I love the practice element. Now, I know there's benefits of using spiral and looping type of methods, but I do enjoy getting those deep dives, feeling like you really master a concept. And that's one of the reasons why I use Math Mammoth with my daughter, is to drive home that idea of mastery with respect to math. Great on the pricing here. I mean, you can't go wrong. $40 to $60 is available on the Math Mammoth website. We have a link down below. But you can also get it at other retailers as well. And there's a ton of links from Math Mammoth on if you have a preferred place to purchase. You can also get bundled editions. So if you're looking forward and you're like, oh, we need grade 1, 2, and 3, or larger bundles, the price really comes down in the digital downloads. So a lot means that you're going to have to print that off, find like 3-ring binder, go ahead and put all that curriculum into the binder, hole punch it, and go forward. We have done that before, and I don't feel like it diminishes the experience. It's a little bit thicker on like a 1/2-inch binder versus just the one book, but I find the digital downloads to be very effective and very nice, and I like that aspect here. So if you're looking for a math curriculum and you're homeschooling and you're doing that maybe it's your first year homeschooling or the first time you're getting into a real math curriculum, you absolutely cannot go wrong with Math Mammoth.